Exodus 003. Now that the Israelites have crossed the Red Sea, they are in celebration mode for their freedom from Egypt. They are now on the other side. God starts sending the Israelites manna from heaven, food to eat, Krispy Kreme donuts. They are now starting to whine again about where they are. The mixed multitude was a group of Egyptians within the Israelites that started all the grumbling. The mixed multitudes were Egyptians who were married with the children and had children with the Israelites and were now considered family. The meat they eat, quail. That quail can be killed by being stricken with just a stick or even the hand. Manna was gathered daily, provided by God. God made sure the people followed due process by making food go bad by the day's end. This is the first time Sabbath is used. Manna was provided for 5 days, and then a double portion on the 6th. And on the 7th day they were to rest, and no manna was to be provided. Deuteronomy 8 is God explaining how manna was provided for sustenance. Numbers 11 describes how manna tasted and was served. Like I said, Krispy Kreme donuts. Psalms 78 called it angel's food. They ate manna for 40 years. John 6:30 refers to manna as a type of Christ. The irony by now is that all the Israelites can do all about their situation is complain. Time and again, for most everything. Their next big complaint was lack of water. Moses was told by God to talk to the rock and it will bring forth water. God is not mad at the people. Moses is quite upset at the people, and therefore he instead strikes the rock. This sole event, being against what God had said, is the reason Moses was not allowed into the Promised Land. It is now time for God to lead the Israelites to the Promised Land. Amalek was the grandson of Esau, who sold his birthright, and the Amalekites were the first to attack the Israelites in the desert. This attack is brought up in Deuteronomy 25. They attacked the weak, nimble, and faltering. This is the fight that Moses went up on the hill with others to watch the battle. While the rod that he was carrying was lifted, the Israelites were winning. When the staff was down, the Amalekites prevailed. So it was that the others that were with him held his hands up so he could hold his staff up so Israel would win. Joseph told Moses to write this down in front of Joshua so it wouldn't be forgotten. To date, the Amalekites' race is no more. The book of Esther tells of the Amalekites wanting to exterminate all the Jews. The priest of Midian, Jethro, came to Moses with his sons and wife to give them back to Moses. Remember, Moses sent them to Jethro because Moses' trip would be gruesome. Jethro is a Midianite that actually honors God because typically Midianites hated God. Jethro saw how Moses preaching to the people and wondering why he is doing it in mono. Why are you taking on this whole task by yourself? He told Moses he needed a council of people to do it because there were so many to preach to. He said to get with God and his principles and select a group of counsel that you can depend on. Numbers 11 tells of this. Jethro then went home. There are two types of covenants brought forth in those days: a covenant of an understanding between two parties involved where one promises to the other something and is duly bound to it. I will give you this land was a covenant. The first covenant is a parity covenant where two parts are equal. The second is a suzerain covenant, is between a greater and lesser, like a king and their subjects. Moses and God had that type of covenant. The difference between a covenant and a contract is the more public stating of it. A hiring of someone with stipulations is a contract. A marriage is a covenant. The code of ethics in a marriage is to keep together unless a specific code has been broken, like cheating on your spouse. A contract is breakable just because you didn't like them. In the third month, Moses went into the mountain to talk with God. Tell the people to remember who they used to be. God was an avid name changer, and back then, a name meant something if God changed it. He was letting the people know their life was fixing to change. Abram meant exalted father, which meant Abram was going to be a leader. Abraham meant father of multitude, which meant nations will come from you. According to God, at the time, if you keep my commandments, I will do such and such. When Jesus went to the cross, God changed this statement to taking out the if in the language, because the death on the cross was a signification that your life was redeemed back to God. And you deserve what He gives, whether you or God thinks you do or not. This is God's covenant to you. Your name is in the book of life and has been since the foundation of the world. And you finally recognizing Jesus as your Lord simply gives God the ability to bless you on earth as well as in heaven. The value of an item is based on what you are willing to pay for it. Jesus' life was spent to get you will never own that item. Jesus paid His life for yours. That is why the if is removed. The more you practice actually being a child of God rather than following old habits, the more God wants to bless you. You don't have to follow the 10 Commandments because that was written for the Israelites. But to do so, because you want to, opens a door of God's heart that makes Him want to bless you by health, wealth, or otherwise. I know this from experience. All this makes you set apart. You are holy unto God. God heard this and told Moses, "If only I could believe them." Moses then started his trek toward Mount Sinai. See Hebrews 12. Next, we will speak of Judaism and other things.